So, the regular season has concluded, and not in a way we expected it to. Bowl season is upon us, but not without its drama. So, as usual, college football does not disappoint. My name is Jens, and this is your AFC College Recap podcast. Hello, everybody. My name is Jens. Welcome to the AFC College Recap podcast. Actually, kind of poetic. We're ending the regular season podcast episodes as we started with Dirk. So Alexis couldn't make it today. So we actually had to have a small blast to the past because at the beginning of the season, Dirk joined us as well. So thank you very much, Dirk, for joining this quite special episode, I think.
As usual, no problem at all, Jens.
Well, if you want to talk college football, you're probably the guy you want to talk to because
There are not a whole lot of guys in Belgium you can talk to, I'm afraid.
there are not a whole lot of guys in Belgium you can talk to, but you're one of the guys who probably is neck deep in college football when the season kicks off. Uh, what do you think of last weekend? Because regular season has concluded, champions have been crowned. The only thing that's left now is bowl season, some playoffs, and then that's about it.
Well, there was a whole lot at stake still, so we had a lot to look forward to. We had a lot of unbeatens who could, well, of course, lose, which happened. Some tight games, some blowouts. But usually, championship game is just about confirming what we already know. But we had something different this year, I have to say.
Yeah, we had indeed a great weekend with some upsets, as we probably, as you mentioned, we had a 9.5 underdog who won and a 5.5 underdog who won. Funnily enough, Alabama was not the greatest underdog this weekend. Alabama won against Georgia, and that's probably the one that took us most by surprise because everybody expected Georgia to win it all and actually make it to the final and win the final pretty easily. And now they lost. They are out. The committee was quite harsh to them. They didn't put them in the top 4, which could maybe be expected. Are you surprised at all, maybe? Or did you see this coming?
About
Alabama winning.
Alabama winning, yeah, that was quite possible, I have to say. We watched Georgia last week against Georgia Tech. We saw it in person in Atlanta, of course. They didn't throttle Georgia Tech, which is still a mediocre, sorry, Sylvain, ACC team. Okay, it's a rival, but they've had these games before. They were cruising on a very, very long winning streak. What was it? Nearly 30 games.
29.
29
games.
Indeed, nearly 30. And if it had to come to an end, probably it had to happen against Alabama. It started off well, I have to say, for the Bulldogs, but then they let it down. A little bit by our hero, Peyton Woodring, of course, who missed a 50-yard field goal, which was quite important. Of course, in the end, they came up short by 3 points, but they shot themselves in the foot on a false on a false start and a big sack on that play. Would have been a 35-yard field goal. And then it's still Alabama, it's still Nick Saban, it's still a big recruiting class, it's still an SEC powerhouse. And it was a close game, and Alabama came out on top. I would have guessed still Georgia might have edged out a win, but I don't think guys like Lat McConkey and Brock Bowers were 100%. I think Lat McConkey even had to leave the game again. I think the tank ran empty on Georgia this time.
Yeah, Brock Bowers led receptions for the Georgia team, but only with 53 yards.
Yeah,
no touchdowns. Both of the touchdowns for Georgia came on via the ground game. You need a passing game, and you need a decent passing game. Everybody to be pretty healthy when you're going against a very good Alabama defense, because that's the unit that kept them in this playoff race for so long this season. Because when the offense gave out this season, it was usually the defense who kept them in the game.
Yeah.
So you had to be very good, and if you're not able to go via the air, it's going to be a long day for you. So Georgia loses, which was probably a very big surprise to most of us, in the sense that If you talked to us about this a few weeks ago, nobody or very few of us would have predicted it. Only some of them would have been cautious and say, let's not uh, come to
Well,
conclusions too quickly." But
the thing, of course, which many people forget, and foreshadowing also in the Alabama going to the playoffs race, is that Alabama needed a 4th and 31 last week against a mediocre Auburn team
Mhm.
to get into this conversation. Of course, they were always going to be in the SEC championship game, but it would have been a whole different thing if
Mhm.
they didn't make that 4th and 31, which
Yeah.
is, of course, they did it, but they were not the favorites and this week, and rightfully so. I think if you looked at the
Mhm.
last few,
Yeah. Their season hang by a thread a few times
for
in
sure, yeah,
this past season. Uh, but it's actually kind of fun to see that this could still happen. So the team that everybody predicted to go undefeated, the season goes or suffers a defeat at a time that they cannot suffer a defeat. So
in
that's
their
why you
home
love college
state, no less. Yeah.
in their home state. So that's actually why you love college football, because these things can keep on happening. And we saw it in Las Vegas as well. Another underdog won their championship game. Washington won against Oregon. Was that one you were surprised by?
Yeah, this was a big surprise to me because just as Georgia was a little bit running on empty, I thought that Washington for sure was running on empty, and that on the other side that Oregon was going quite strongly the last few weeks, with Bo Nix putting up a Heisman campaign, putting up big numbers, and just in the end again. They ran into the same foe as they lost to earlier in the season. They lost to Washington and to Michael Penix, who just found his rhythm again at the right moment.
Yeah.
Because he used to be a big favorite for the, well, amongst others, for the Heisman, but it was actually out of that race a few weeks ago.
Yep.
It was a big surprise to me. I thought that Oregon should have had this easily.
Easily. Well, I would have predicted, or we actually both predicted, Alexis and I, to Oregon to win. I just found that the spread was a bit too great, and I forgot to bet it. But when the game kicked off, I immediately remembered I didn't put the Washington spread, because I thought that they could do something at least, or they could make it a little bit closer. Because as you said, these two teams battled it out in the season, was very close. I didn't see any way that Oregon would actually blow Washington out, because if
Well,
they are winning by 10 points, then that's actually becoming a tough
yeah,
loss for Washington.
part of the problem with this Oregon and Bo Nix, of course, was always Bo Nix was a reliable quarterback. You can't say anything about that, but he's not the guy who takes you from a large deficit when he has to make the big man throws. He's usually under 10 yards with his average. He was only averaging 7 yards in this game. So, and I think, yeah, they started out really slow out of the gate, and then you have to
Mm,
catch up. And this is not Oregon's game. They need to come up. They need to lead by a lot of points.
hmm
So the script was against them as well, partially due to their own fault, of course.
Yeah. Well, to their own fault, but also to Washington's credit, they took what the defense gave them, because most of the big yardage for the Huskies came on, yeah, blown coverages in the defense for Oregon, and also while having great receivers on Washington's end, because Rome Odunze is probably the second wide receiver of the board in the coming draft. You have Jalen McMillan, Jalen Polk. Those are actually great receivers. McMillan and Odunze both have above 100 yards. So having those two to throw to for Penix is a huge advantage, playing behind this offensive line as well.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I thought that Washington could maybe win it. I didn't
Well,
think that Oregon would be this bad on defense, because I mean,
yeah, Washington
in the
also had
first half,
go ahead.
yeah, in the first half, this Oregon defense, they were asleep at the wheel.
Yeah.
And
Well,
I've told it to people, they need to wake up. They need to do it like they did in the regular season, because otherwise it's going to be a long game for them.
mm-hmm. Well, one thing I don't know. Did you mention Dylan Johnson already?
Not yet. Well,
That's also a big part of
source
the
to me.
game as well for me. That's of course, if you're ahead like Washington was, You can start the run game, and if you have a guy like Dylan Johnson who can carry the ball 28 times and still average over 5 yards per rush, that's going to take the clock down. That's going to take the momentum out of your game. So again, not Oregon's game.
No, not Oregon's game. The stars aligned for Oregon to go into the playoffs, and they lost their opportunity. Now
Yeah,
Washington gets in, and they get to play Michigan in the playoffs.
yeah.
Or wait, no, it's Michigan, Washington, and then Texas. So they play Texas. Alabama's playing Michigan. So they're playing Texas. Do you give them a shot at the finals?
Well, first, if we look at Vegas, Texas is a 4-point favorite, so it's actually quite a close game. Game's going to be played in New Orleans, so it's more of a Texas venue probably. I don't know if Washington fans travel that much. I hope they do. But of course, I think they got it. It's a 50-50 game for me, actually. Washington they both have the QB, actually, who's kind of on the same level for me with Quinn Ewers and Michael Penix. They both have some good receivers. I hope they all play. That's one thing. With these postseason games, most of them will play if it's a playoff game. If it's a regular bowl game, a lot of them will opt out. With guys, with Xavier Worthy, is he already eligible for the draft? I'm not even sure.
I think he is.
It's again a loaded wide receiver class, and I think he's top 5. I think he is,
He
yeah, because
should
I
be.
saw he was the fastest wide receiver this week, or even for the last few weeks. He got over 22 miles an hour somewhere. So I think they both have weapons. Should be an exciting game. Should be a high
Mm.
scoring game because they're both not that strong on defense. And I don't know where I would put my money. Might be on Texas. Texas might be back.
Yeah, yeah. They won against Oklahoma State. Good win, very resounding win. They leave the Big 12 with a bang. That's the thing you could say about them. And then the other game, we haven't talked about it yet, but probably the one who's causing most controversy these few days. Florida State wins. They are
Yeah.
undefeated and they are not in the playoffs. So Alabama takes up their spot, plays against Michigan. Should it have been Florida State?
Uh, yeah, it depends on who you ask. If you ask me, I'd say yes. I have a few reasons for that. Of course, it's a committee, and they've been telling everybody that they should pit the best 4 teams. And if you have to really do that, and if you say, okay, close your eyes, you didn't do anything for the last 13 or 14 weeks. Who are the best 4 teams? And you have the best 4 teams in the playoffs right now. Now you have to look at what they did. Florida State did not lose any games. They won the last few games with backup quarterbacks. They have a really outstanding defense. Like I said before, Alabama was a 4th and 31 away of not even being in this conversation against the 6-6 Auburn team, who checks notes. Lost to New Mexico State in the weeks before that. So if you look at this honestly, and also the ACC has a 7-4 record against SEC teams. So the ACC comes out on top if you compare them to the SEC. Take that and the undefeated season. They beat an LSU team in the first week. People forget that because it's 13 or 14 weeks ago. And they still won their championship. A Power 5 champion, leaving them out has never happened in the 10 years that the playoffs is going on right now. So in my eyes, they should have been in there. There would have been less controversy if Florida State would have made it than it is right now. Of course, if you're just a college football fan, you're happy that Alabama is there because the spread would have been a lot bigger if it was Florida State. And you saw it also when the Michigan team, they were announcing who they were playing, and they said Alabama, and there was like a murmur in there. If it would have been Florida State, I'm sure there would have been some whoops, and people would have been happy.
Exactly.
If I would have been on the committee, my vote would have been for Florida State. You don't go undefeated in a Power 5 conference that easily.
My thoughts exactly. Florida State should have been in, but it's as you say, we're probably getting the better matchup now with Alabama against Michigan and Florida State against Michigan. I would be more excited even to see Alabama play in the playoffs instead of Florida State. No disrespect to Florida State, but losing Jordan Travis is just too great a loss for them to overcome
That's the
a
elephant in
very
the room,
good.
of course. If you lose your starting quarterback, yeah,
Yeah, that's the reason they're not in. If they would have had Jordan Travis and had the exact same results, Jordan Travis having the
yeah.
exact same stats, they would have been in. So the only reason to me that they are not in is the fact that they lost Jordan Travis, nothing else.
Plus the championship game against Louisville, a ranked Louisville, okay, who lost to Kentucky last week. Was it like 3-0 at the half or anything?
Yeah, something like that.
It was not a very exciting game, which was in prime time. So everybody was watching that and said probably like, this Florida
Mm,
State team is not deserving.
yeah,
Um, so if they would have had like a win like Texas did against Oklahoma State, because nobody's talking about one loss Texas, nobody. Okay, they beat Alabama, but it would have been a different story.
yeah, indeed. What game are you most looking forward to in the playoffs? Alabama, Michigan, or Texas, Washington?
Has to be Alabama, Michigan.
Ooh, yeah,
Well,
I'm going Texas, Washington.
are you going to take? Yeah, it's
Yeah,
probably more exciting, but
mm,
the two better teams are pitted in the other match. I think you'll see less points. You'll see more runs, especially for Michigan. Um, but I think it should be the one that you look forward to. Just also two premier schools going against each other. It doesn't happen a whole lot that Michigan plays Alabama. I don't even
no,
remember the last time they actually played each other.
yeah, me neither.
Um,
But it's
of
been a
course,
while.
Texas Washington is another matchup which is probably unprecedented.
Mm.
But I'm going for Alabama and Michigan for sure.
Well, it's great we get to see both of them, and for us, it's not on New Year's, so we
Well,
get
that's a
to
good
see it.
thing. I thought it was at because last year was a New Year's Eve, right?
Yeah, it was New Year's Eve with Georgia winning it, or actually Ohio State losing it at the stroke of midnight,
Stroke of midnight.
which is still pretty epic
Yeah,
if you think of it. This won't happen this year, so it's going to be played on the 1st of January, which is very good for us
it's
because it's
perfect.
yeah, it's usually right at midnight that they are playing, so it's impossible for us to see unless you start to disrupt family dinners, which I don't advise on New Year's. Let's keep it with the family. So it's great for us this year. We get to actually watch them. Very excited about these playoffs. Bowl season is going to be fun again. Betting, we're gonna have some bets. We're gonna put out in the coming weeks. So looking forward to that one. Dirk, thank you very much for joining me in this podcast.
No
Like I
problem.
said, it's a very special one. We end the regular season over here. It's time to look forward to the bowl season, and then after bowl season, we're actually on to the draft. So still a lot to come this year for us,
Yeah,
but
Heisman
very
voting still to come as well.
Heisman voting as well. We haven't talked about it yet because it's quite controversial. We're probably keeping it for another episode, and then we can have Alexis joining, and then have you put it against Alexis for who you're gonna vote. I'm pretty sure I know already what's it gonna be, but let's keep it for another episode because that one will go probably on for about 10 minutes.
Okay.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Dirk. People, thank you for listening throughout the season. We'll be back for bowl season as well. So keep tuned for the socials to keep up to date. We're not really sure how the program is going to go. If we're going to go weekly, if we're going to go one big one before the bowl season starts, still to be decided. But keep an eye on the socials. You will be kept up to date. So far, thank you for listening throughout the season. Dirk, thank you for joining me tonight. Thank you for watching with us this season as well. And everybody, see you later. Bye bye.